Hey guys, glad you stopped by. We're about to do some canning. Today we're going to can some chicken a la king, which is a great old classic dish, and it traditionally has in it chicken, some mushrooms, peas, and pimentos, and then today we're going to add onion and green pepper to it, which I'm sure has those also. I can't remember the last time I had it. I had to have been pre-teen to early teens, but this should be a quick, easy one to do. Now, chicken a la king traditionally has flour in it, so when we can it, we're just going to omit the flour, and then when we cook it up after the fact, it turns it into what could be an all-day meal of cooking up the chicken and making sure the vegetables get done and making a gravy. All we have to do is make gravy and warm it up and go. You're talking 10 minutes, and this should make we'll see 5 to 7 quarts. We're pressure canning it, so that gives us some leeway on what we're going to do, but this should be a pretty balanced pH wise and all that stuff. It is not based, I mean, it's kind of based on a recipe by Ball. It's an old school recipe by Ball. Theirs has flour in it though, and we are not putting flour in it. I don't want to take that chance of it spoiling or getting weird or anything like that. So we're basically just gonna leave flour out. So anyhow, if you're new to the channel, welcome. If this is your first video, thanks for stopping by. I hope you get something out of this video. Maybe check out some of the other videos. We do canning, we do cooking, we do baking. We'll start gardening up again here shortly, although I don't do a whole lot in the garden filming wise, but I do a lot in the garden. And that may change this year, you never know. Yeah, if you're returning or you're a new subscriber, thank you. I'm so glad that you decided to join our neighborhood or come back to visit some more, and hope you consider that. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. That gets us out in the algorithm, and helps to grow our neighborhood. That way we can continue towards village status. We keep this up. Our goal for the end of the year is 5,000 subscribers. I hope we hit it. That'll be awesome, but you never know. I mean, things happen, and so on and so forth. But anyhow, that being said, why don't we go ahead and jump down here to the counter and we'll get started on this dish. Hold on for me just 1 second. Okay, we are down here at the counter, well, stovetop to be more precise, and the only thing we're really going to need at this point is, now I already have I have 8 quart jars washed up, just in case I have enough to do 8 quart jars. But you'll need a stock pot to start with, and then I'll get the pressure canner out here shortly. But first thing we need to do, I have got 12 chicken breasts that I have right here, and I have the breast sliced in half, so you should have 24 pieces, or how many ever you have to make. I mean, as long as you have more than 1 jar, so if you have 2 or 3 jars worth, you can do it up. But you don't go out and buy 12 pieces of chicken all at once. At least I don't. I just simply buy a little extra every time. So like every once in a while when I go to buy chicken for the house, I'll buy an extra package, if I can afford it. That way that's how I get all my extras, is I buy a little bit here and there. $10 when you go to the grocery store once a week, an extra 10 will buy you a lot, even an extra 5, and if you don't use it, save it up. That way you have a little extra, whether it be in your freezer, your deep freeze, on a shelf canned up, or dehydrated, which I hope to get into that come spring, when we have a dehydrator. But anyhow, so I got my 12 chicken breasts and I got those split. I'm going to put them in my stockpile. I don't have any water in here yet or anything like that, so we'll go ahead and get these in there. Okay, we got our chicken in there. Now, chicken in and of itself can be very bland, especially since we're using all breasts. So there's not going to be a whole lot of grease or anything coming out of these, and we're going to poach these. So it's not like we're going to cook them all the way through. So to add flavor to that, I mean, you can add any spices you'd like. I'm just going to simply throw in a few things. All I did, I took a medium-sized onion and I just quartered it up, and I'm going to throw that in there. And then I've got 2 celery stalks that I just rough cut it into like 3 pieces, and I left the leaves on. The leaves actually hold a lot of flavor. And when we go to start dehydrating here in another month or so, I'll show you how to dehydrate those leaves. You can actually use them as a dried spice or herb to put into dishes. And then the last thing I have here, I have what was essentially 3 small carrots, but for most people, just, a couple carrots that we're gonna throw in here, because we're not gonna save any of these vegetables. Now, everything was washed, or like in the carrots case, peeled. The onions were peeled. I didn't leave the skins on anything. Yeah, because I didn't want that dirt, and since I don't buy all organic, I didn't want the chemicals sitting on the outside even after I washed it, so I just washed and peeled. So we got that in there. Now the next thing we need to do is take some water, and we're just going to cover all this up. Okay, so we got our water in there. One thing I did forget, I wanted to put in there, and it just hit me, is some thyme. Now if you have fresh thyme, do about 2-3 sprigs of thyme and just throw them in there. But instead, all I have is some dried thyme, and I'm just going to throw that in on top of it. So now what we're going to do, we're going to cover this. I'm going to turn this on. I'm going to bring this up to a boil, and as soon as it comes to a boil, once it starts bubbling, I'm going to shut it off, and I'm just going to let it sit for about 20 to 25 minutes. So remember, we're not cooking the chicken. We don't want to cook it all the way through. We just want to poach it. Alright, so we've got our chicken has been poached. We just want to go ahead and get it out of here and set it in a bowl. We're going to let this cool a little bit so we can handle it, because we're going to want to cut this up into bite-sized pieces. Okay, we got all our chicken out of there. Now we're going to take our water and our aromatics, our onions and green and celery and stuff like that, and we want to separate them. All we want is the liquid out of this. That's going to be our broth essentially. Now we may have to add a little better than bouillon to it, or a bouillon cube if that's what you have, or powder, or whatever you keep at your house to make broth with. Okay, we got all our aromatics, our celery, carrot, onions, thyme out of our broth, so that way all we have is broth. Next thing we want to do real quick is go ahead and give it a taste to see if there's anything it needs. That tastes good. It definitely tastes like chicken, but not a lot of chicken. This has got a real light flavor to it, so I am going to go ahead and add, in my case, some better than bouillon to it. Like I said, you could just easily add a cube of a bouillon cube, or a couple teaspoons of powder. I mean, whatever it is that you like in your, or that you use to make broth with. Or I could even ran downstairs and just got a can of chicken broth out, a pint, and put that in here and added it to it. I just want to boost that flavor up either way it goes. Alright, so we got that in there. I'm just going to keep this on warm, so turn on low, put the lid back on it, and then once this chicken cools down enough that I can handle it, I'll get it cut into bite-sized pieces, and then we can move on. Alright, so here's what we got. Our chicken is cut up into little pieces, and like I said, if you can help it, you don't want it cooked all the way through, because then it'll overcook when we pressure can it, and it won't kill it, but it'll make it a little dry. You don't want a little dry chicken. So you want to make sure it's still tender and flexible at any rate. And then while that was cooling, and before I cut it up, I went ahead and got my mushrooms out. Now I've got about a pound of sliced mushrooms, and they're just regular old button mushrooms that are washed and rinsed. I cut up 2 large green peppers, well, about 2 medium-sized green peppers, and then I cut up 2 medium-sized onions, and I just rough chopped them. Yeah, nothing big to do. Nothing big. Whatever size you want. Really. I just rough chopped mine. I didn't fine dice or anything like that. And then we've got some pimentos that we need also. So what we're going to do is now I'm going to measure out my chicken because I have a scale, and I want to ensure that I get equal proportions in each one. If not, just you can eyeball it. Rule of thumb when putting solids to liquids is, and this is based on volume, the total jar, is no 50-50. No more than half solid, no more than half, but you can always do more liquid. Doesn't necessarily have to be half. But I figured out with what I had here, this was just 2 ounces shy of 14 pounds. So I can do 10 ounces of chicken per container, and that'll give me 7 jars, which is what fits in my pressure canner. So I'm just going to go ahead and get that put in there. Alright, so I got my chicken in here. I didn't do all my jars yet. I'm just going to do them one at a time. And now I'm going to put some mushrooms in there. Mushrooms are really kind of the star of the show. And just a couple handfuls worth. And then we will put in, you know, a handful of onions and a handful of green peppers. And then I'm going to take about a tablespoon's worth of pimento, about a tablespoon's worth of pimentos, and go ahead and put those in there. Wow, these are sliced, not diced. Huh. So we'll go ahead and break those up real quick as we go. Okay, so we got our pimentos in there, and then I'm just gonna pack it down a little bit. Now remember, it's 50-50 by volume, not halfway to halfway. See how I have all that emptiness around the chicken and stuff like that? So then after we get that done, I gotta get, sorry about that, I had to get out my funnel, so that way we could not make a mess with the broth. And then what we'll do is, now we want to leave an inch of headspace. So remember from last week, your inch line is pretty much that big band right there, so we don't want to go above that. So we'll go ahead and get our broth that we've been keeping warm. Nothing here is really hot. Now I did turn on my, I went ahead and got my pressure canner out, got my 2-ish quarts of water in there up to the fill line, and started warming it up. But it's on low, so it's not like it's gonna do a lot of gig, or get a lot done right this second. So fill that up to the inch line, knock that, and I'm missing my, there it is. Grab my handy dandy plastic spoon here, and we'll make sure we get those bubbles out. That way we can make sure we got plenty of liquid in here. Alright, we are in good shape. Need to add just a little bit more broth to that. Just like such. And then I'll set that can to the side. We're not going to lid it yet, I'll lid them all at once. And then we'll just grab another jar. So here, we'll do one more together, and then I'll finish up the other 5 off camera, so that way you don't have to sit here and be bored. So we'll go ahead, get our chicken in. Mushrooms. Couple handfuls. I'll do a little bit more. Put one more in there. Do our onions, about a handful of onion. Yeah, and you can adjust your onions, mushrooms, and green pepper to whatever you like, the amount you like, or not at all for that matter. But I would recommend putting some in there at any rate. And then a touch of green peppers. Tear up a pimento or two to get that in there. Just like such. Grab our ring. Yeah, and you can always tamp this down if you want to. And then we'll get our broth in there, just like such. Wow. broth in there. Then we'll grab our debubbling tool, or as most people like to call it, a plastic spoon. Get those air bubbles out of there. That's important. There's that. Add a little more broth to make it back up to that inch. And then set it aside. All right, let me get these other 5 jars filled, and then when I come back, we'll do lids, rings, and set them in the canner. All right, so we got all our jars filled. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and take some vinegar. I got some just plain old 5% distilled vinegar, which I think, yeah, 5%. And if you're gonna buy vinegar, this is just a recommendation in my opinion, always get 5%. They make a lesser, and it's like 3%. And I mean, it works for some things, but 5%, you can cook with it, you can can with it, you can clean with it. I mean, it's enough of a percentage that it works with a multitude of things. So we went ahead, paper towel, vinegar, wiped off our rims. That way we know they're nice and clean. Take the rest of our vinegar, dump it in the water. That way we can fight against getting minerals on the outside of our jars. Now we'll go ahead and put our lids on. And now remember, last week we talked about the different types of jars. You want to make sure your jars are the ones that are kind of labeled on all sides. Got a, you know, maybe a picture on one side, it'll say ball or whatever on the other side, and then have measuring things on the other 2 sides. You don't want just the plain old normal jars. Not that you can't use them, but they're not designed for pressure canning. And I only stress that because I've only actually ever heard one person say that. Mention it. So we got our lids on, now we're gonna put our rings on. And when you put your rings on, you want to go finger tight, right? You don't want to palm it and death grip it and slam it on there. That leaves a micro opening, so to speak, a small gap, just big enough that the air can escape out of that 1-inch area without losing any liquids. And it'll seal itself, because that glue will heat up in the process. And then as we do this, we're going to go ahead and put it in our pressure canner. Remember, we've got our about 2 quarts worth of water in there. If you're using a Presto, I don't know about other canners, but with Presto, there's actually lines, hashes on the side going up for different things. And if you're using a Presto canner, it's the very first line, and it's about 2 quarts, give or take a little, but not by much. And we're gonna set these in here. Like I said, this holds 7 jars. So like last week where we had to put empty jars in to keep them from, you know, bouncing all over the place and potentially breaking, this time we don't. We have just enough jars to put in here. And on top of that, check that out. That's literally all I had left, was just these little bit of vegetables right here. Which I can take that, I'll stick it with some andouille sausage maybe tomorrow or something after I get home from work, and saute it all up, and it'll be wonderful and delicious. All right, so we got our jars are in there, and I got to get the lid. Got the lid, and we'll put it on and make sure it's locked in place. Remember, with the Prestos, it's got the arrows right here. I think the American canners have the screw tops you put up and lock it into place with. This one, you just turn it, and then here, I don't know if I've ever shown you this or not. I don't think I have. But right here is that little button, and that is a safety lock. What that does is it'll pop up and it locks this lid so you can't turn it even if you tried. So what we're going to do now is we got that turned and set into place, right? So it won't come off. I turn my heat all the way up on high. This is going to start to steam. You're going to hear things start to happen in there, but then I'm going to wait until that lock pops up. Once that lock pops up, I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes and let it go 10 minutes. That will ensure that all the air is out of here and replaced with steam. You got to have that to have a proper temperature in here of 240 degrees. So after that, I will set my weight. Once my timer goes off, I have a weight, which is right here. Weight, not wait a minute, but weight like it's heavy. We'll stick that on there and wait for the pressure to get up to 11. As this pressure climbs up, I will turn the heat down in small increments. That way we don't go way past 11. And I know on my stove in particular, I can keep my heat at the number 2, and that'll keep me right at 11 and a half. It's okay to go over a little bit, but not, you don't ever want to go under. Once you hit 11, set your timer for 90 minutes. All right, quart jars, 90 minutes is what we're going for. So I'm gonna go ahead and get through those processes, and when I come back, we'll talk about what to do when it's time to shut her down. All right, hold on for me 1 second. Okay, so the timer's going off. I thought I'd show you this real quick, in case you are new. The button went up. I set my timer for 10 minutes. The timer just went off. Now I'm going to take my weight and I'm going to put it on over that spout. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to watch this gauge, and as it starts to go up, I'm going to turn this down off a high. I'm going to start now. Actually, I'm going to take it to 8. When it gets to about 5 pounds of pressure, I'll take it down to 6.5. You don't want to do giant drops in temperature like that all at once. A, it'll take longer for this thing to pressurize. B, in the long run, if you make big moves, it can affect your canning. It can cause jars to siphon or lose their liquid. There's just a whole lot of bad that can go wrong. And if you see it go up above 11, let's say, or wherever, for every 1,000 feet above 2,000 feet of sea level, you want to go up in pressure. So here we're below 2,000 feet, so 11 is my niche. But let's say it starts to climb and go to 12 or 13. I don't want to go turn it all the way down real quick or turn it off real quick. I'll turn it down and it'll eventually work its way back down. But you really have to pay attention. So I'm going to sit here and watch YouTube movies and keep an eye on this for the next 90-ish minutes. So I gotta wait. Once that hits 11, I set my timer 90 minutes and we start the process. If it drops below 11 at any given time, unfortunately I'll have to start over. But by sitting here, I can keep an eye on it and ensure that doesn't happen. So when I come back, we'll talk about what to do afterwards. All right, I'll see you here in a second. Okay guys, so it's the next day and we got our chicken a la king processed, but I unfortunately, due to time restraints, had to go to work yesterday and did not get to shoot taking them out, but we'll review real quick. Okay, so where did I put it? There it is. Right here is the lid to our pressure canner. When your 90 minutes is up and you've held it at 11 psi or whatever your rated psi is for your area, because like I said, it goes up a pound for every 1,000 feet above 2,000 feet of sea level. You'll turn your stovetop off. You're going to let this sit until this pin right here drops. It'll go like that. At that time, you will take your weight off and you will let this sit with the lid on for 10 minutes. Afterwards, when you take it off, after that 10 minutes is up, you'll take it off away from you. That way the steam comes up and away from your face and not in your face, and you don't melt your face. So now that we've got that accomplished, we've taken them out. We let them sit for 12 to 24 hours, right? That way we know that they're nice and cool and they've sealed properly. You're gonna listen for that ting, it'll make that ting noise like that, signifying that it is sealed. The button that's on top of your canning lid will be down, right? So we're now to the point where we've been, well, almost 24 hours. And right here is what our finished product looks like. I think that looks quite phenomenal. And I had no siphoning, none at all, which was really nice. But you'll notice that this is off the line. The reason for that is our vegetables shrank, right? And when they shrank, it made more space. So I could have probably, if I had crammed it down, stuffed more vegetables into this, which was fine. But as you remember a few minutes ago, we didn't have a whole lot left. So now that we've gotten to that point, we've removed the rings, we've washed down our jars, and we've checked, you find the spot on the lid there, to make sure that the lid, I can hold just the lid and everything else stays. That means we are properly sealed. And then I went ahead and wrote down what it was and the day we made it. And then we're gonna store it on a shelf, someplace that doesn't get a lot of light, and if possible stays 68 to 72 degrees, which is your maximum, that's your ideal place to store. Dark, 68 to 72 degrees. Mine's in the basement, and someday I'll show you it. It's quite fun. It's not nearly as capacity as I'd like it to be, or it used to be. Between pandemics and inflation, it has not destroyed my grocery store, but it's not nearly as plentiful as it used to be. Oh, it's still pretty solid. But anyhow, so now we're on to making this. And this is actually really quick. It should only take you about 10 minutes. If you're making biscuits with this, which I did, you should have it done about the same time the biscuits come out of the oven. So let's go ahead and jump on down to the counter real quick, and I'll show you how to make this. Hold on for me 1 second. Okay, we're down here at the counter, and you can make this in a pan. I'm gonna make it in my sauce pot. It's a 2 quart, 1.5 quart, something like that, sauce pot. And the first thing we're gonna do is turn her on. And then I've got 3 tablespoons of butter right here. And we're gonna go ahead and get this melted in the pan. Okay, so we got our butter melted. So next thing I'm gonna add is a 1/4 cup of just regular old all-purpose flour. Get that in there, and then we're gonna give this a stir. And we're making a roux, but we're gonna make a blonde roux. We don't wanna, cook the flour till it's really dark. We want to just get it so there's, so it's got a little bit of golden brown to it, and we've cooked it a little. That way it kills the flour taste. Although I've never actually tasted the flour in anything, I know it's a thing. So we'll give it a second to cook. All right, we got our flour nice and cooked, golden brown. I don't know if you can see that or not, but we are a nice golden brown. Not butter brown, but kind of butter brown. But anyhow, the next thing we're going to add to this is 1 cup of heavy cream, or if you want, you can use half and half. I thought I had half and half, but I don't. But the option's still there. So when you get that stirred in, like such. And then we are going to take our jar right here, and we are going to open it up. Oh, did you hear that? That's a sign that it was sealed. And we're going to put about 1/3 cup of the juice in there. There is that. And we'll go ahead and pour that in. And you can use more if you want, because we're not going to actually use all this broth, which is why we didn't. Luckily it didn't cost us anything, because it's literally just water, right? With a little bit of, well, in my case, better than bouillon. But we want to get that chicken flavor in there all the same. Now all we have to do is let this thicken up. Alright, we are thickened up, as you can see there, no longer runny. Next thing, all we have left to do now is just go ahead and add our dry ingredients. And I went ahead and just got rid of what little juice was left in there. There really wasn't a juice broth that was in there. There really wasn't that much. So we'll go ahead and get this stirred in. We're gonna get the chicken and vegetables warmed up nicely, and then we'll be ready to serve. Okay, so I did forget an ingredient. And it's one of the more important ones. Chicken a la king isn't, in my opinion, chicken a la king without two things: mushrooms or peas. So I have a half a cup of frozen peas. I don't know why I didn't remember that. We're gonna get those in there, and then, like I said, we'll just let this warm up until everything's, you know, to temperature, because your peas just have to heat up. That's all. All right, we are done. And that literally took like 10 minutes at most. And there we are. You can see that. Yeah, that's a lot of white, but it looks delicious. Kitchen smells amazing. So now all we have left to do is throw her on some biscuits. In this case, I mean, you can also put it over toast or rolls or, you know, rice, noodles. But I'm doing over biscuits because that's what sounds good to me. And there is that. And there we are. So, and there's enough in there realistically for 4 servings, you know, just in that one jar. Now I did salt and pepper to taste right before I took it out of took it off the stovetop. Yeah, I think that looks just fantastic. Maybe the plate's a little big, but you know what, that's okay. You could serve this, I guess, with you know, a nice salad, or you know, even some rice maybe, or yeah, yeah. I mean, I'd do salad. Maybe if this were mine, I would do salad and like maybe a rice pilaf or something like that, which is a nice classic, you know, dish. But let's give this a try and see how she turned out. Tastes just like chicken a la king. That is really good. Hands down, really good. Let's take one more little bite in. I really hope you give this a try. That is really good. And so if you think about the canning side of it, that took about 3 hours total, right? Maybe. And most of that was the hour and a half, the 90 minutes spent canning it. You know, most of that was in canning, a lot of waiting. But for that 3 hours, I got 7 meals that each one of them will take me 10 minutes to put together, which will be enough time to bake the biscuits or make toast or whatever it is you like to put it on, and throw that together, make a gravy, and add some peas. That's really it. And you will have a delightful meal, you know, with minimal to do. This is really something, I mean, you can take camping with you, keep on a shelf for those late nights when you get home from work and you've had the worst day ever and traffic was a mess. You know, it's something that's so easy and so worthwhile. So I really hope you give the canning this a try. You won't be disappointed. And it's fairly easy. This is a good introductory meal to pressure canning, you know, if nothing else. And it's healthy. You know everything that's in it. We put nothing in that. Yeah, I mean, there's vegetables, there's protein, and that's really it. You know, no additives, no preservatives. You get a good, quick 10-minute meal for, you know, 7 of them for 3 hours worth of labor in one day. So anyhow, let me know if you do give this a try. Now next week, I have no clue what we're doing for dinner or dessert or canning as of yet, but I'll figure it out eventually. I know here in the next probably week or two, I'm going to try to take a week off from filming, and I will try to get extra videos done so that way they can just come out as normal. But if not, you may not see me for a week, and nothing bad is going to happen per se, but there's a lot that I need to get done, and plus I need some time to just breathe. Between work, at the pizza shop, running the bakery, and YouTube, you got to take time to breathe, right? So I may take a little bit of time to breathe, but we'll see. Anyway, it goes. Let me know if you try this. I'll be curious to know what you think. I think it's delicious, and it's quick and it's easy. So until next week for dinner, I love you. I love you very much, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Tell somebody else that you love them and that you love them very much. It's going to make them smile. They may need to hear it. It's going to make you feel good inside to tell them. Really, probably make you smile too. And if you make them up one of these chicken a la king meals and give it to them, and say, here you go. Here's a nice quick meal for when you're having a bad day. It's definitely going to put a smile on their face. They're going to thank you forever. They're going to know they have a friend, and it might lead to some good conversation. So till tomorrow, Wednesday for dinner, I love you. I'll see you then. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.